Hello, and welcome to What is Innovation, the podcast that explores the reality of a word that is in danger of losing its meaning altogether. This podcast is produced by Outlast Consulting, LLC, a boutique consultancy that helps companies use innovation principles to solve their toughest business problems. I'm your host, Jared Simmons, and I'm so excited to have Parker Meeks. Mr. Meeks is a proven senior operating executive with more than 15 years of experience driving transformational change via strategic growth, operating performance, acquisition strategy, and integration and culture formation in field services-oriented businesses across design and construction end markets, including infrastructure, industrials, electric power, energy transition, and oil, gas, and chemicals, with demonstrable success at the global and national organizational scale in a variety of ownership environments. Mr. Meeks has most recently held full P&L responsibility for a nationwide 900-person design and construction management business in transportation and water resources within TRC, a leading provider of technology-led integrated design, construction management, and environmental services to the electrical, power, infrastructure, industrial, and commercial markets. Previously, he was a partner with McKinsey & Company, where he was a founding leader of the capital productivity and infrastructure practice and served clients across the globe, predominantly in strategic growth, private equity-backed business building, operational performance improvement, and major capital project turnarounds, supporting over 30 mega projects, over $500 million in total project costs over a 5-year period. Mr. Meeks has a BS in electrical engineering from Columbia University and an MBA from Rice University. Parker, thank you so much, my friend, for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Jared, thanks so much for having me. It's great to see you and great to be on.
Yeah, likewise, my friend. I was happy to get to the point in the bio where we had something in common. We both have degrees in engineering.
There we go. So we both are linear thinkers that have to really disrupt ourselves.
Exactly. Let's just jump right in. What, in your mind, is innovation?
Innovation to me, Jared, is disruption. And it's disruption in a positive way. It's moving frontiers in a direction to create. It's moving back barriers, removing barriers, changing the structure of how something is done, how a product is formed, how a service is delivered, how we live our lives. And to me, innovation can take many forms, but at its core, to me, innovation is really fundamentally changing in a way that is progressive. Not that it always works, not that it always turns out to be in the end better,
right?
But to innovate, to me, is to disrupt.
I like that. To innovate is to disrupt. And you touched on it there. Tell me about progress. What progress means in that, in that definition.
Yeah, to me, I think progress is as simple as a dramatically new way of thinking through how a process should be performed, how an end goal should be achieved, both the achievement itself and the method that's taken to achieve it. And progress, significant progress in the way we're talking, to me, is even the act of attempting to innovate, which in and of itself may not reach the innovation endpoint that you thought you're going to achieve, but the process of attempting to innovate on that scale, on that progressive, dynamic, disruptive scale, often is the start of an innovation being realized that you didn't even see coming in terms of the end innovation that's actually the most productive.
So it's almost that the act of trying, the process and the machinations of attempting to innovate are almost as important as the outcome, if not more so.
Certainly. There's a lot of people that I speak to who are trying to figure out, how can I become someone who thinks in this way? I'm an engineer like we are, right? A lot of us have more of a struggle to think outside of the boxes we've been kept in our entire lives. And the advice I give them is, even if you're not born a disruptive thinker, a creative type, which I certainly was not in terms of my natural state, building that muscle is as simple as pushing yourself to think outside of the boxes that you're typically in and to create the comfort of attempting to turn something on its head, attempting to think about something and approach something totally differently. And that approach, to your point, itself will start to build that muscle to show the different facets of how innovation could be realized, and to give people more confidence that that they can go in this direction and end up in a different place.
Right. That's well said. And it takes me to kind of the view you have of innovation across the design and construction sort of industry, having seen PE-backed, public, privately held, playing the role of consultant, also being, having the P&L responsibility. You've seen innovation from a number of different angles and perspectives. And I wonder if we think about it as we talk about the process being important, are there themes that you see kind of emerging in how people go about innovation in that space? Because at the end of the day, we all we tell ourselves the outcome is not as important as the process, but we want to try to have a positive outcome.
Right.
Have you seen any themes that tend to lead to positive outcomes?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jared. I mean, to me, if I just take design and construction, and one innovation that's still ongoing, still very much in its early stages, when you think about bringing digital technology to design and construction, I mean, design and construction isn't as age old of a process as you can find.
Yep.
We've been building and constructing things, different forms and formats, since mankind was evolved into its current form.
Right.
And the industry, frankly, is pretty far behind to other industries that are using real-time data, advanced analytics, machine learning, predictive analytics. I mean, even getting field data from a design construction project digitized at the point of entry and utilized in even a weekly basis with any kind of advanced analysis put on it. That's a forward-thinking concept that, despite progress, people are still trying to figure out. So if I take that example, which is still very fresh and live, that I've been trying to push the frontiers along with many, many others in the industry from my times at McKinsey and TRC, the outcomes that we've achieved that have been positive in nature, that have led to real progress, I think come as much from the inclusion of many different stakeholders, diverse schools of thought from different parts of the process that touch different aspects of it along the entire journey, right?
Right.
When it comes to innovating, like what always fails is a person or a small number of people or people from one viewpoint trying to innovate, trying to disrupt, right? Sometimes it works in certain spaces every now and then. There's a brilliant idea that a small group is able to achieve. But in my experience, the more stakeholders that are in and around whatever you're trying to innovate, trying to disrupt, trying to evolve, who are primary users, who are end users, who are stakeholders that interact with the process or the product along the way, but those who are for it, those who are against it, right?
Right.
Every single aspect, the more you include all that, and that's really the challenge, I think, in achieving an innovation that can persist and that can land and stick. If you don't know how to be as inclusive to get all those viewpoints and then distill it down to what is going to achieve an outcome that's more favorable. And again, let me give you a case study going back to design and construction.
Sure. Yeah.
The early forms of design and construction technology were often instituted by contractors who were looking for ways to be more efficient, more effective, to execute projects, to protect their bottom line, reduce risk, and in some cases, improve performance in the project for the owner. But particularly in the Western Hemisphere, in the US, where contract structures are tended to be more time and materials, cost plus based versus a fixed price, right? All that risk sits with the owner, but for lots of reasons in different industries, owners didn't necessarily see the value in the technology, didn't want to pay for an extra cost that was uncertain in their minds to produce value. Hence, you have an industry where there's really only one stakeholder group who's engaging. It's the contractors.
Got it.
And so what's that done for technology in the space? It's kept the technology fairly limited in both its application and its acceptance because you only have a subset of contractors who are willing to pay for it to improve their own performance for their own reasons. And that's the disruption that I've been trying to lead, is engaging the broader community, in particular the owners, to say, look, we can all get to a better place here if we can own this disruption together and see the benefits to all sides, see the detriments to all sides. Because, by the way, technology is not always a good thing for contractors either, because it provides visibility and transparency. And that can not, I know I would not want to use that against an owner, but there are certainly there's a place for transparency that could potentially work against the interest of contractors. So that's I think a good microcosm of this sort of critical factor that I see in success in innovation. It's really engaging all stakeholders that you need to. One more example I'll give, just to make you smile.
Yeah.
Going back to our days together at McKinsey in the healthcare design and construction world, you'll recall a similar factor, right? We were trying to basically disrupt how large healthcare systems design and construct their healthcare facilities across diverse geographies, diverse economic environments, diverse healthcare needs, with a myriad of stakeholders, from the hospital system to the local hospital CEOs in the hospital system, to the architects and the constructors, to the patients and the nurses,
patients,
doctors, and I'll let you finish the story a little bit here, but I mean, we had to go out and engage all those stakeholders, get them involved in the innovation, because with just one group or two groups owning the answer, then half the stakeholder group is going to reject it, and the innovation wouldn't take hold.
So that's a fantastic example, and it just all kinds of things just flooded back to my in my mind. But I think the key, and I thought that the part that was brilliant, as you sort of constructed your team to bring this innovation to life, you brought me in, and I'm a CPG guy. Market research guy. I'm an engineer, so I can talk the talk with the contractors, but I brought in a sort of natural consumer bent to the whole thing that I think was innovative for that space. And I think you identifying that as a need within the industry was a great call out. The conversations with the nurses, with the patients, with the administrators about what really drives value. How do you define value in this space? Yeah, the contractors and folks have one definition of what value is, but if the blood pressure cuff is on the wrong side of the bed, that's a bad thing for the nurse. It's a bad thing for the patient, and that's not an outcome an administrator wants to have.
Right.
So it was really about redefining the outcomes, starting at who is the ultimate arbiter for value, and factoring in, and this was the brilliance of your approach was, we factored that in with the contractors' outcomes and their definition of value. So being able to bring all that together in that context was a lot of fun, and I hope it really kind of opened some eyes at that contractor level about being able to trust and the importance of building trust across those lines, and the data you can get back and the context you can get back. Well, now that we know that, here are 5 other types of sinks we could offer you, or you could use these types of lights. But you don't get that if you don't establish trust and kind of build that working relationship.
That's right. And I think you've made a great point that I didn't push in there, but diverse backgrounds of thinking, bringing new ideas from different backgrounds that may be totally foreign to the typical traditional way that something is done. And I think your background is a great example of that, bringing that into a typically very engineering led, this is the way we've done it, in environment in healthcare. And I think that's something that we've seen work time and time again in our prior life, is taking automotive approaches in supply chain to oil and gas, or taking approaches that of using data differently that utilities or have used for some time, of real-time monitoring and things like that, into the water space, or into, again, the design and construction life cycle. it's always uncomfortable, and it should be.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically almost always going to have an equal amount of naysayers or questioners as it
Right.
will have supporters. Often supporters are fairly highly outnumbered.
Yeah, that's for sure.
The key to all of this is creating an environment where all parties feel safe to share and valued,
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to show how the innovation can help despite frictions that very well may occur, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's getting all end users or all participants up to speed on training and being able to do the process differently, temporarily productivity loss
Right.
that creeps in the system, while the innovation is taking hold and while that transition is occurring, but showing them despite those frictions which may exist, here's the end goal, here's the end outcome, and here's the opportunities or the frustrations that you see in today's process or approach or product that this end result is going to help fix,
Right.
and why it has value for you. So, I mean, it
Yeah.
really is. It's almost even more about the process, the approach, and points of view that are involved as it is about the idea that starts the process,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
almost always is changed.
Yeah.
So,
That's right. We never end up where we started. And that's why it's always two things that sparks. One is, it's always been about questions more than answers, which is part of the way we were trained, is to think more about what are the key questions that you need to ask, right? And I think a lot of times in an innovation conversation, when people are talking about innovation, they're looking at what do you know, what did you build, what can you produce, those sorts of things. Did you make a new electric car, you made a new rocket ship, or you made this, that, or the other thing. But the innovators, the people that are building these things, they're looking at this rocket and going, okay, it crashed, but I answered 6 questions
exactly.
that I needed to answer
Mm-hmm.
to get to the moon. And so I think you have a knack for always focusing on what are the right questions to be asking, and building trust in all the stakeholders that once we answer these questions, we will be a step closer to where we all want to be together.
Certainly.
And I think that's critical, and that's something that I've watched you do and learned a lot from, kind of how you do that in conversations. And it really moves groups of people forward that wouldn't necessarily all have the clearest reason to work together.
Absolutely. A real rallying cry.
Yes,
To show
exactly.
them that maybe they come into a thing, and we all think very differently, but they realize, yes, we might think differently in certain ways, but there's common ground.
Yeah, exactly. And the other piece that comes to mind when I think about that is the use of kind of tangible things. And working with you, I took that away as well. We built a model, remember, of a particular type of room.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very hard to get it built. It was the early days of that technology. There weren't lots of places to get something like that designed and built. And I couldn't see why it was so important. And then it got there and it was on the table, and all the stakeholders just kind of fell into it.
Right.
The conversation got easier. They could kind of see what they were shooting for. It really kind of galvanized the group, and it was worth every second of time that's spent, getting it designed and built and everything. But it's those kinds of tangible things that really, I think, can help galvanize a team as well.
That's right. No, and I think that actually that example brings back some memories for me of another nuance of that process that I think is also a part of innovating in a way that allows something to take hold, is forcing people to make choices, make difficult choices.
Yes.
Once you have an innovation that appears to have traction, appears to be meaningful, beneficial to the majority of those that need to own it and need to appreciate it, but may not be practical or feasible, whether it's in the end vision of what it is, in this case, a hospital room, and what are you willing to pay for?
Right.
And we gave each person fake money of, I think, $100 of fake money, and said, this is all you got. And
that's right.
Here's some trade-offs on, do you want the fancy sink or the less fancy sink? Do you want,
right.
some extra square footage? Do you want extra connections and outlets?
That's exactly right. We match that up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what takes innovation from pure whiteboard, almost dreaming stage, right? Which you need to have to really stretch what is possible. And in that storming, norming, and forming stages of team building around a concept,
right,
it allows each participant group to basically start to make some difficult choices of how this thing can actually be brought from the visioning board to reality in the constraints that always have to be put in place.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's well said. I wonder, I had the opportunity to work directly with you and sort of see these things role modeled on a day-to-day basis. How do you, as you were leading, this large nationwide team, how do you kind of take that mindset and empower, your leaders within your group to replicate and, sort of deploy that mindset throughout your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jared. And yeah, I mean, in a decentralized organization, particularly a hardline P&L, where you've got an industry that's operated with certain constraints, not that the people that I've been fortunate to work with, haven't been innovating. They certainly have all been pushing on it in different ways.
Sure.
But to really break the mold, whether it's innovating in aspirations for growth and how we get there, to grow our customer base, to grow our services, was innovating in the way that we're mentoring and shepherding and developing people. First, just setting, understanding and listening, right? So the first thing I always do, whether it was at McKinsey working with a new client or a new McKinsey team, or at TRC, working with over 20 regional leaders, P&L leaders, who are in our group nationwide, is understanding them, understanding their background, what they're proud of, what innovations they think they've already pushed in,
right,
how they think, where they see opportunities, always having in my mind, where I think there could be opportunity, where I think there could be potential, but knowing that I really don't know a thing until I understand their point of view and their constraints and their upside. And then really setting goals, right? Starting with, what are the things we want to achieve, right? Is it financial performance improvement? Is it people, metric improvement? Is it safety improvement? Where are the areas that we just, regardless of how we're going to get there, how high is high enough, and how high is aspirational,
right?
And then what do we know how to do today that can get us there? And it's always incrementalism, right? It's just natural for everybody. It's here's what I know I can get, here's what I know I can do, here's the time I think I know I have,
right? And
then basically saying, look, relax the constraints, just tell me what you need to get there. What can we do? And then that doesn't always just flip a switch. Sometimes people still struggle to unlock it because either they've tried it in the past and ideas didn't come to fruition, they weren't supported, or they just have a view that things are hard because they've tried them, times before, or they just don't have the perspective and the breadth of vision that not that yours is all encompassing greater, but I have a very different background from anybody else, right? Just like they have a very different background from me. Yeah. To me, it always starts with listening, understanding, and allowing the people that are closer to it to drive it. And then my role is really to help push the aspiration, help bring in my perspective on, how things could be done differently, even admitting that I'm not sure this is going to work.
Right.
But here's some things. And frankly, there's a lot of those conversations in the digital technology applied to design and construction management world.
I can imagine.
The most important thing, though, in all of that, you can have the best conversations in the world. And in the end of it, in the back of their minds, they can be thinking, this all sounds great, but I'm not sure anything's going to happen.
Right.
So I think the most important thing is to be realistic and know that whatever you're saying, you can deliver against, but to say, look, you tell me what you need. Let's lay out what the possibility is and what we think the paths are to get there. And I'm going to support it. And we're going to align on what's going to happen. And we're going to see this thing through, and being consistent in making sure that follow-up happens, right? So when I was with TRC, half the business was out west in California. I spent a lot of time with that group, really understanding them, their vision, pushing together on what the art of the possible could be, bringing in some of my perspectives from a different point of view on,
Mm-hmm.
Partnering and roles we could play, services we could provide, in ways that we could bring other digital technologies and things to the business, but always in the end, showing them this is your business to run. This is
Right.
your teams, your vision. I'm just here to support it, here to help you unlock it, and consistently following up. Even in some cases, I was the one who was following up, right?
Right.
It's not just putting it all on them, that you can follow up with me. And I think that's where, if people feel inspired in a way that feels tangible, if they
Mm-hmm.
feel supported, and if they feel like it's a safe place to innovate, and that if for some reason the innovation fails within the boundaries of the known risks that were framed, that
Right.
it's not going to come back to bite them unnecessarily, right? It's not going to come
Mm-hmm.
back to where I don't want to take a risk because the risk may not be worth it. Because you say you want me to innovate, but if it doesn't go well, then it's on me,
It's
and
on
I
me.
shouldn't have
Yeah,
done it.
that's right.
Right. So it's
Right.
creating that safe, supportive space where it's all understood, and the risk we're taking, we take together. But we're striving to achieve an outcome that we know otherwise we can't get there. And we've done the work we need to, where if it fails, we're going to learn along the way. And to your point, the rocket may partially crash or totally crash,
Mm-hmm.
but we're actually better off because we've made progress, and we can rebuild the rocket quickly and actually end up in a different solar system. So
Exactly. Oh, yeah, that's great. That's a great analogy. I think the relaxing the constraints, that piece of what you said really kind of stuck in my head, because that is the piece I think most people working for a senior leader are most concerned about. And I think that is what I think makes you a unique leader in the innovation space, and is, I'm sure, disproportionately beneficial in the design and construction area, looking at digital technologies. Relaxing the constraints, when you have the authority to say, okay, well, what if you didn't have to have X? What
yep.
if this didn't have to be true? I think is a huge unlock for folks. And I think your point about constraints is a great one as well. People tend to think that innovation is about eliminating constraints, and I think innovation craves constraints. It requires constraints to flourish.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of making sure you're making the right choices, and you're giving people the support, as you said, to feel like they can take the risks to get that disproportionate value on the back end of things. So yeah, I think those are sort of the things that jumped out while you're talking about your leadership style, and unfolding in what you said and what I've experienced. So so there may be some extra in there too.
Yeah.
But I want to know if you have any advice for innovators in particular. We've talked a lot about how you go about things, and some of your principles have come out, but do you have any specific advice you'd offer to innovators?
I'll start by saying I'm not the end all be all to innovation, but I'd look for advice as much as I would give it.
Yeah.
I guess the advice that I would give, that I'm just learning for myself,
Mhm.
frankly, is really to realize, and this is probably for those that are earlier on in their journey, to realize that innovation is an ongoing process, no matter how much you achieve in one direction, right?
Mm.
Early on, when I was really trying to broaden how I thought about solving problems, so I thought about advising clients, I'd have a big idea and innovation I thought I wanted to push, and it was always big aspirational oasis in the desert, right?
Mhm.
And we'd end up getting somewhere great, but if it wasn't as, in terms of the first ending point, the first conclusion, if it wasn't quite as grandiose and idyllic as the original vision, I'd feel somewhat disappointed, like we didn't achieve.
Mm.
But then I realized pretty quickly that's a first stop along the journey. There's more innovation to come, and to keep going back to it, this design and construction technology piece, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were doing some things with basically taking real-time data from the field back in the 2015 2016
Wow.
time frame.
Yeah.
Back then it was really taking simple data capture, iPad entry concepts and putting them into a data lake with Excel.
Mm-hmm.
Where my vision was real time, iPad fed dashboards appear.
Yep.
And while that answer, this at the time for McKinsey, it was called Project Control Tower, that concept was a big step forward versus what was available and really helped several clients.
Right.
To me, at first, that was a bit of a disappointment because it was still operating in Excel and with the data lake, and it was more clunky than I would have liked.
Right.
But it accomplished, half of the goals that we had for better real-time decision-making. And then we built on it. And now there's the industry has zoomed ahead and there's great solutions that are out there that we can even further build on. And I'm still innovating in that area.
Right.
And I don't think I'm ever going to reach the end point.
Right.
So I think for those that are earlier on in their journey, just realizing that, kind of going back to where we started, you start off on an innovation path and you have a goal in mind and a set of stakeholders and you're pushing. You're going to deviate. You're going to reach interim milestones. Just keep pushing, right?
Yeah.
And know that even when you achieve great things, 2 or 3 versions down the road, it's that continuous thinking along innovation that's going to help you continue to improve. And frankly, one innovation path can then sprout 3 others that you never saw coming in the same directional trend.
Right.
So that's probably my biggest piece of learning for myself is I used to think about innovation as, launching Google or, inventing an electric vehicle or,
right.
coming up with this, end all be all for digital technology applied to design and construction. And I think it's just having patience and commitment. And once you're there, then this process of innovation is just a constant living and breathing thing. And that's when the muscle becomes strong. And that's really the team concept that I try and instill and build is we all can become innovators. We all can become these big picture thinkers and leaders that lead to practical solutions. And frankly, that's where technically driven people and engineers like us, who it's not as natural for, can be even stronger in getting to real usable innovation that's continuously improved over time. Is once you're able to stretch your brain to accept this, it's a series of endpoints and it's a process that never stops. And to enjoy it, all of a sudden, you're able to really dynamically live in that environment and to bring more practical solutions along that journey.
Oh, yeah. All of that. Exactly. I think that's a great piece of advice. Something I wish I'd had long ago. I think that it's as you said, it's tough for engineers. I think it's also tough for people with bosses.
Yep.
To me, anybody who's reporting to someone else, I think that's great advice for you because a lot of times either your manager has a big plan in mind, or you have a big plan in mind to impress your boss. And understanding the difference between progress and perfection and being able to communicate milestones along a path to where you're trying to go and helping people recognize those steps as progress. I think you're exactly right. That's critical stuff that I definitely learned the hard way and continue to learn every day. So thank you for the reminder.
No, and that's a great point. It dovetails with our prior discussion about leadership and creating that environment, right? But you're absolutely right. If that persistence and finding that support environment to foster innovation is absolutely critical, and frankly can help people make choices about the kind of environment that they want to be in.
Oh, such a good point. Such a good point. Parker, thank you so much for your mentorship and your friendship over the years, and thank you for your time today. Much appreciated.
Jared, you're a great friend, and I'm just so happy to spend any time with you. But thanks for everything, and for having me on. I've actually learned a lot from this discussion, peeling back the onion and living some great memories with you, man.
Yeah, good times. Good to talk to you.
You too, man.
All right, take care. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this week's show. You can drop us a line on Twitter at Outlast LLC, OUTLAST LLC, or follow us on LinkedIn where we're Outlast Consulting. Until next time, keep innovating, whatever that means.